Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I'm back with another Question the Narrative video, and today's topic is on the Aurora Borealis and the Throne of God. So the Aurora Borealis are the lights that we typically see in the north, also called the Northern Lights, and there are also some seen in the southern hemisphere, I believe called the Aurora Australis. I'm not sure if I said that correctly, but what we are generally told that the Aurora Borealis or the Northern Lights are is a result of interactions between the sun and Earth's outer atmosphere. So that can be a believable answer for those who believe in the heliocentric model. For those of us who question it, though, that does leave some room for us to think, well, maybe there's a different reason that there are these beautiful lights at the North Pole. And here's just some photos. Absolutely stunning. And I wish I would love to be able to see them in person someday. But yeah, if you do not believe in the heliocentric model, or at least question it, because, I always leave a tiny percentage open that I could be wrong in believing that the Bible tells us that the earth is level and stationary. I could be wrong. I could be reading it completely the wrong way. So I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers, but I would like to know what this would possibly be if we don't have a sun that is 93 million miles away and is interacting with the atmosphere. What could it be? Well, a few years ago, I came across a channel called Feed Your Mind, and I recommend this channel. He has a lot of fantastic videos. I could not find the one about the Northern Lights. I was very upset, and I think that a lot of you probably know that YouTube doesn't make finding things on this topic very easy. Years ago, you would be able to type in something like this, and it would come right up. But nowadays, if you type in anything that is related to the flat earth at all, you could type in the name of the channel, the exact title of the video, and you could click search and it still would not come up, or you would have to scroll through pages and pages and pages in order to get to it. And instead, you'll just be bombarded with videos debunking it or making fun of it. So I do have to give credit, though, to Feed Your Mind. They are the channel that I first came across this theory of what I'm going to go over with you today, if you haven't ever actually thought about what the Northern Lights are before. So in the book of Revelation, we are told, let me just read this to you. After these things, I saw a door standing open in heaven. I heard the first voice like a trumpet speaking to me. It said, "Come up here, and I will show you what must happen after this." Instantly, I came under the Spirit's power. I saw a throne in heaven, and someone was sitting on it. The one sitting there looked like gray quartz and red quartz. There was a rainbow around the throne, which looked like an emerald. So let me go back to this. A rainbow around the throne that looked like an emerald. There is much speculation in the Christian truther community that the throne of God actually sits directly above the firmament at the North Pole. So what you see here is a model. I believe it is from testingtheglobe.com, which was the late and great Rob Skiba's website. And he actually came up with a model of the biblical earth looking like a footstool. And it's based on the verse, "Thus saith the Lord, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that ye build unto me, and where is the place of my rest?" So it tells us that heaven is his throne and the earth is his footstool. So there is much speculation that the throne of heaven is actually sitting directly on top of the firmament right in the center at the North Pole. And I want to show you an interesting passage that I found today. Now, this isn't the first time that I've read this verse, but it's the first time that I've read this verse with this topic in mind, so I never really noticed what it says at the end. It says, Isaiah 14:13, "You said in your heart," and he's speaking to the Chaldean king, "You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God, I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the far reaches of the north." Now, a lot of people think that the Mount of Assembly is in Jerusalem, but the Jerusalem is actually south. So where would this be? The north. There's other speculation of where it could be, but there are some people who believe that it could actually be at the North Pole. And, there are a lot of questions about why are we taught differing things about the North Pole. I did a video on it before. Some people were taught that the North Pole had land. Some people were taught that the North Pole had ice. Other people were taught that the North Pole is just nothing but ocean. And from what I understand, you cannot directly fly over the North Pole. What is there then? Well, that's certainly an interesting question. And it brings you again back to this one, to the Mount of Assembly in the far reaches of the north. And I do have to say, above the stars of God, I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the Mount of Assembly in the far reaches of the north. Well, you can't get much farther north than the North Pole. Am I right? So if he wanted to go to the North Pole, and he wanted to elevate himself above the Most High God, and if he knew that this was the place where the Mount of Assembly was in the North Pole, that would certainly be the place to go. Now, I also just wanted to go over an interesting thing. I decided to look up the Mount of Assembly, and this is from the website of Derek P. Gilbert, and I actually have several of his books. But let's just quickly go over what the Mount of Assembly is. The concept of the Mount of Assembly was known to the pagan neighbors of the ancient Israelites. As far back as the time of Sumerian dominance in Mesopotamia, the 3rd millennium BC, it was believed the divine council, led by the chief god Enlil, met at his temple in the city of Nippur. Remember, Enlil himself was called Great Mountain. And so if you've ever read anything by Dr. Michael Heiser, or if you have ever watched any of his fascinating lectures right here on YouTube, you will know that there is also a divine council that is actually spoken of in the Bible. And it is thought that the divine council is made up of the Most High God, and then what we might call our elders, or the holy ones who actually assemble on this mountain. So again, we're back to asking, could it be above the firmament in the North Pole? Now, I also wanted to show you something else very interesting, because just imagine that. I have to go back and I have to reiterate what it originally said. An emerald rainbow. And if you take notice to the other colors, you typically see red and green. And what colors are mentioned in that scripture that I read to you? Well, it was, let me go back to it, gray quartz, which I looked it up and they said would be very similar to diamond, and red quartz. So we've got diamond colored, we'll say, red quartz, and emerald. And what are the main colors that you see up here at the North Pole? Now, I know that there are some people who are going to say, okay, but what about the lights at the South Pole, because they're down there also? Well, yes, but if you are thinking of a firmament, and we've got to remember that the original Hebrew word used for firmament was rakia, which means emblazoned, and it actually signified a hard surface. So the firmament was described as a hard surface. So if it would be something typical to this, or similar to this, maybe like a crystalline material, then there could be a reflection that would then emanate around the outer edges, which would be what we call the South Pole. I also wanted to show you something else that was very interesting. The Sea of Glass. Revelation 4:6 says, before the throne there was, as it were, a sea of glass, like crystal. Let me repeat that. Before the throne there was, as it were, a sea of glass, like crystal. Going back to this picture again, you certainly couldn't deny that this, if there were a throne sitting up here, and if John were seeing this from his own vantage point, this would certainly look like a sea of glass that the throne was sitting on. So very, very interesting. And this article is actually really, really interesting. I'll read a little bit of it. It says twice in the book of Revelation, John mentions a sea of glass near the throne of God. John does not elaborate much about what this sea of glass actually is. Is it water that looks like glass? Is it smooth or rough, like broken glass? Does it move like the waves of the sea, or is it stationary? As we know it, the sea is a dynamic moving force, but glass gives the impression of stillness. How can a sea be made of glass? What is John talking about? Revelation 4:6 says, before the throne there was, as it were, a sea of glass like crystal. And Revelation 15:2 says, I saw what appeared to be a sea of glass mingled with fire. So if you see the sea of glass, and if you are able to see this emerald rainbow around it, and with the red emanating also around it, that could certainly look like it was mingled with fire. In neither verse does John say that he saw a literal sea of glass. Rather, he says, there was, as it were, a sea of glass, and I saw what appeared to be a sea of glass. The words of comparison make a big difference. It is one thing to say you were struck by lightning. It is quite another thing to say you feel as if you were struck by lightning. And that's one thing that we have to be very careful of in the Bible, is that we have to understand when they are describing exactly what they see, or when they were or sometimes they were just using imagery to describe something that they didn't have a better way of describing. So could it have been maybe a crystalline substance that the firmament is made of? I don't know. I think that it's very possible. I also found this translation of Revelation 4:3 that I thought really described it well. And this is also where I saw that it's jasper is best translated as diamond. And I believe in this one here, it was called gray quartz. But here, let's read what it says. And he who was sitting was like a jasper stone. So jasper is best translated as diamond, and a sardius in appearance. Now a sardius, that would be red. And there was a rainbow around the throne like an emerald in appearance. And I'm just going to go back again, and I'm going to scroll through all these photos of the aurora borealis. And just think to yourself if that could possibly be described as an emerald rainbow around the throne of God. Could this be what he was describing? Is this coming from the actual throne of God? Is that what we are looking at when we see these lights? Here it says, jasper is best translated as diamond. Of all physical matter, a diamond resembles the color of light the most. No one can break it. Everyone treasures it. Its structure is the result of the transformation of coal. Its light is like the light of the gospel, which brings people from darkness into the realm of light. Sardius is the most perfect red and signifies God's redemption because blood is red. The significance of these two items is their colors. One signifies the light of the gospel, the other signifies the redemption accomplished by God through the Lord Jesus. And is this something that actually comes through in physical appearance? And there was a rainbow around the throne like an emerald in appearance. The rainbow ordinarily seen on earth is shaped like an arc, but the rainbow here surrounds the throne. The rainbow is the sign of God's covenant with Noah. From this we can see that God is a covenant-making God as well as a covenant-keeping God. God is going to execute his judgment soon. Nevertheless, he continues to keep his covenant and remember his promises and grace. Emerald green is a grass green. It is the basic color of the earth. This means that during God's judgment, he has grace and remembrance toward the earth. After the earth has passed through judgment, the color green still remains. And so, again, this certainly does look like a grass green. So I just really found this interesting. And what I love about questioning the narrative is that you are able to see the world with new eyes, because we know that so many of the things that we are being told are not true. Sometimes it's done deliberately. Sometimes it's just an honest mistake. But I think that when we are able to just use our eyes with what we see and use the information that we are able to either find at our fingertips or that sometimes that we actually just know on our own, we can ask these questions and think to ourselves, is what I'm looking at something that the science books have told me, and are they correct? Or am I looking at direct evidence of the throne of God? And again, I do want to give a huge thank you to Feed Your Mind 2. It's Feed Your Mind 2, for they were the ones, he was the one who originally informed me about the possibility of this. This was way back when I first started researching all of this, and I've always been fascinated by this whenever I looked at pictures of the aurora borealis. It's something that I've never been able to get out of my head and that I've never really done a video about until this time, but I finally did, and I hope that it gave you something to think about. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one either here or over on Instagram. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.